I was 3 lattes deep into my Thursday afternoon when my world collapsed. Not with a bang, but with an Instagram notification. Rachel Kelly Designs just posted for the first time in a while. My thumb hovered over the alert. Rachel had been mysteriously quiet about her business trip this week, unusual for someone who documented everything from morning smoothies to midnight skincare routines. I tapped the notification, expecting fabric swatches or client meetings. Instead, I saw my best friend kissing my ex-boyfriend on a yacht. The coffee turned to acid in my stomach. I blinked hard, certain I was hallucinating. But there was Rachel, sun-kissed and glowing, wrapped around Alan like she'd been there all her life. The Mediterranean sparkled behind them, mocking me with its perfect blue. Surprise! Sometimes business and pleasure mix perfectly. Ser entrepreneur life zoas is blessed. I zoomed in, my fingers trembling. The photo was tagged in Santorini. Rachel had told me she was at a textile conference in Chicago. Alan had mentioned a guys' fishing weekend when I ran into him at the grocery store last week. The cafe around me continued its mundane symphony, espresso machines hissing, customers chatting, life proceeding as if nothing had happened. But I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. My phone screen blurred as tears welled up. "Harper, you okay?" I looked up to see Mia, the barista who knew my order by heart, watching me with concern. I'd been coming to this cafe every Thursday for 3 years, first with Alan, then alone after the breakup, finding comfort in routine while rebuilding myself. "I'm fine," I managed, though my voice cracked. "Just work stuff." I scrolled through Rachel's feed, each new image a fresh slap. There were 12 photos in all. Rachel and Alan feeding each other at sunset dinners. Rachel and Alan exploring whitewashed villages. Rachel wearing a gauzy white dress that I'd helped her pick out for a client meeting. The timestamp on the first photo, 5 days ago. The exact day Rachel had texted me. Landing in Chicago. Wish me luck with these stuffy fabric vendors. My mind reeled back to 6 months ago. Alan ending our 3-year relationship with practiced lines about growing apart and needing space. Rachel had been my rock, appearing at my door with wine and ice cream, listening to me sob until sunrise. She'd called him every name in the book, promised me I deserved better, all while waiting for her chance. I scrolled to the comments. Dozens of heart emojis and congratulations. "You guys are perfect together. So happy you finally found each other. About time you two made it official." Finally? Made it official? My phone pinged with a text from Peyton, my cousin. "Are you seeing this shit?" Before I could respond, another notification appeared. A direct message from Victoria, Rachel's business partner. Just a single question mark. At least I wasn't the only one blindsided. I set my phone down, trying to steady my breathing. The cafe suddenly felt too small, too warm. The couple at the next table laughed loudly, their happiness an assault. I gathered my things, left cash under my half-empty mug, and walked out into the crisp October air. Outside, I leaned against the brick wall, gulping oxygen that didn't seem to reach my lungs. My mind flashed to all the girls' nights when Rachel had analyzed my relationship with Alan in excruciating detail. How she'd nodded sympathetically when I wondered if I was being paranoid about his late nights. How she'd encouraged me to give him space when he grew distant. How she'd helped me pick out the earrings I gave him for his birthday last year, the same earrings I'd never seen him wear. My phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. I opened it, and my knees nearly buckled. It was a picture of Rachel, taken in what was clearly a hotel room. She was wearing a delicate gold necklace with a small emerald pendant. I recognized it instantly. I'd watched Alan pick it out for our second anniversary. He'd said the green reminded him of my eyes. When I'd asked about it after the breakup, he'd claimed he returned it. It didn't seem right to keep it, he'd said with that sad, noble expression I'd once found so endearing. The text below the photo read, "Thought you should know. They've been seeing each other since last summer. I'm sorry." Last summer, when Alan and I were still together, when Rachel was helping me plan our anniversary weekend, When she hugged me and said, "You two are so lucky to have each other." My phone rang, Peyton calling. I silenced it, unable to speak yet. Another notification. Rachel tagging me in a comment. "Harper Olson, wish you were here. Next girl's trip, I promise." Something cold and hard crystallized in my chest. The tears dried on my cheeks. I straightened my spine and took a screenshot of the anonymous text, then opened my contacts. I scrolled past Alan's name. I'd never had the heart to delete it, and found Rachel's. My thumb hovered over the call button as a plan began forming in my mind. They thought I was still the same trusting Harper who believed in friendship and second chances. The Harper who forgave too easily and questioned herself first. They were about to meet someone else entirely. Thunder rumbled overhead as I stood on Rachel's doorstep 3 days later, rain soaking through my jacket. I'd driven 4 hours to confront her, watching the storm gather strength alongside my rage. My finger pressed her doorbell before I could reconsider. I heard footsteps, then her voice calling, "Coming!" Cheerful, oblivious. The door swung open. Rachel's smile faltered when she saw me, water dripping from my hair, eyes burning. "Harper, oh my God, what are you—" I pushed past her into the entryway, my sodden shoes squeaking against her pristine hardwood floors. "Surprise! I thought I'd drop by since you're back from your business trip." Her face performed a complicated dance. Shock, guilt, calculation, then settling on a brittle smile. "I was going to call you tomorrow. I just got back late last night and—" "From Santorini?" I interrupted. "With Alan?" Rachel's hand fluttered to her throat, fingers touching the emerald pendant. My pendant that hung there. "You saw the posts." "Everyone saw the posts, Rachel. That was the point, wasn't it?" She sighed, shoulders dropping in what looked like rehearsed remorse. "Let me make you some tea. You're soaked, and we should talk about this properly." "I don't want your fucking tea." Rachel flinched. In 8 years of friendship, she'd rarely heard me swear. I'd always been the measured one, the peacemaker, the sucker. "Harper, please, it's complicated. Alan and I—" "Since last summer," I said flatly. "While he was still with me." Her eyes widened. "Who told you that? Does it matter? Is it true?" Rachel's silence was answer enough. She moved toward her living room, gesturing for me to follow. I stayed rooted in the entryway, unwilling to sit on her furniture, to normalize this conversation. "It just happened," she finally said, voice small. "We never meant to hurt you." A laugh escaped me, harsh and unfamiliar. "That's why you posted 12 photos of yourselves all over social media? Tagged me in them? Because you didn't want to hurt me? That was Alan's idea. He thought it was better to just get it out there, like ripping off a bandage." "How considerate." My voice dripped acid. "And the necklace? The one he bought for me?" Her hand flew to it again, then dropped. "He said you didn't want it." "And you believed that? Or did you just not care?" Rachel's expression hardened slightly. "Look, I know you're upset." "Upset? I'm not upset, Rachel. I'm fucking furious. You were in my house, holding my hand, telling me I deserved better, all while sleeping with him behind my back." "It wasn't like that." "Then what was it like? Explain it to me." I stepped closer, water pooling around my feet. "Explain how my best friend and my boyfriend, the two people I trusted most, could lie to my face for months." Rachel's eyes darted around the room, looking anywhere but at me. "We fell in love, Harper. These things happen." "Things don't happen, Rachel. People make choices." She crossed her arms. "What do you want me to say? That I'm sorry?" "I am. But Alan and I are together now, and—" "And what? I should just accept it? Forgive you? Go back to being friends? Eventually, yes." Her tone shifted, a hint of impatience creeping in. "People move on from breakups all the time. You and Alan were already having problems." "Problems you helped create." My voice rose, echoing off her high ceilings. "You were sabotaging us the whole time. All those times you told me I was overreacting to his behavior. All those girls' nights when you pumped me for information. That's not fair." Rachel's facade cracked, revealing a flash of defensiveness. Your relationship was falling apart long before anything happened between us. The casual cruelty of her words stole my breath. I stared at her, this woman I'd trusted with every secret, every insecurity, and saw a stranger. You know what's not fair? I said quietly. That I wasted 8 years believing you were my friend. Something flickered in her eyes. Regret, maybe, or just annoyance at being confronted. People grow apart, Harper. Maybe this is for the best. You can finally move on instead of clinging to Alan and, frankly, to me. Clinging? The word hit like a slap. You've always needed people a little too much. Rachel's voice softened with practiced sympathy that now sounded like condescension. Always checking in, always wanting to get together. It's sweet, but sometimes it's a lot. I felt something shift inside me, the last thread of affection snapping clean. And you've always needed what other people have, I replied evenly. Their success, their happiness, their partners. It's pathetic, actually. Rachel's face flushed. I think you should go. Gladly. I turned toward the door, then paused. Just one thing. How's the business going? Victoria mentioned some concerns when I ran into her yesterday. Rachel stiffened. What concerns? I shrugged, letting the question hang. Just something about accounts not adding up. I'm sure it's nothing. Her expression changed, calculation replacing defensiveness. Victoria should talk to me directly about business matters. Maybe she tried, while you were busy in Santorini. As I walked out into the rain, Rachel called after me. Harper, wait. What exactly did Victoria say? I didn't answer, letting the door close behind me. In my pocket, my phone buzzed with a text from Peyton. Found something interesting about Rachel's new investment partner. Call me ASAP. I smiled for the first time in days. Rachel wasn't the only one who could keep secrets. Rain trickled down my apartment window, each droplet tracing a meandering path, like the thoughts I couldn't quiet. I'd been sitting in the same spot for hours, laptop open, notes spread across my coffee table. The storm that had followed me from Rachel's house 2 days ago still hadn't broken. Neither had my resolve. My phone rang. Peyton for the third time today. I answered on speaker while continuing to type. Please tell me you're not still making that spreadsheet, she said without preamble. I glanced at my color-coded document tracking Rachel's business activities for the past 18 months. It's not just a spreadsheet, it's a timeline. It's obsessive is what it is. Peyton's voice softened. Not that she doesn't deserve whatever's coming, but I'm worried about you. I'm fine. I highlighted another suspicious transaction. Just focused. You haven't left your apartment in 2 days. I ordered groceries. I gestured vaguely at the untouched bag of apples on my counter. That's not the same as living, Harper. I sighed, pushing back from my laptop. What did you find out about Rachel's investor? Peyton paused, and I could practically hear her debating whether to push the subject. Finally, she relented. His name is Marcus Devereaux. He's been involved in at least 3 failed startups in the last 5 years, all following the same pattern. Which is? He convinces small business owners to take on investors, usually friends and family, then mismanages the funds until the company collapses. Somehow, he always walks away with a profit. I added this to my notes. And Rachel brought him in 6 months ago. Right around when her relationship with Alan went public, Peyton confirmed. But here's the interesting part. Victoria's name isn't on any of the new investment documents, just Rachel's. My pen stilled. That doesn't make sense. They're equal partners. Not anymore, apparently. Victoria might not even know. A memory surfaced. Victoria's confused message when Rachel's vacation photos appeared. The question mark suddenly carried new weight. I need to talk to her, I said, already reaching for my jacket. To Victoria? Are you sure that's smart? She's still Rachel's business partner. Maybe not for long. I grabbed my keys. I'll call you later. I hung up before Peyton could object and headed out into the rain. Victoria's design studio occupied the back room of a converted warehouse downtown. I'd been there countless times for launch parties and sample sales, always as Rachel's supportive friend. Today, I hesitated at the entrance, suddenly unsure. What if Victoria was in on it too? What if this was another trap? Before I could reconsider, the door swung open. Victoria stood there, elegant in a simple black dress, her expression shifting from surprise to wariness. "Harper, this is unexpected. I need to talk to you about Rachel." Victoria glanced over her shoulder, then stepped outside, closing the door behind her. "Not here. There's a cafe around the corner." We walked in silence, huddled under my umbrella. The cafe was nearly empty, just a barista scrolling on her phone and an elderly man reading a newspaper. We chose a table in the far corner. "I assume this is about the Santorini photos," Victoria said after we'd ordered. "Partly." I met her gaze directly. "But also about Marcus Devereaux." Victoria's composure slipped, just for a moment. "How do you know that name? Does it matter? What matters is that Rachel brought him in without telling you, and now your business might be in danger." "That's—" Victoria hesitated. "Complicated." "Uncomplicated for me." She twisted her coffee cup slowly. "Rachel told me we needed an investor to expand. I agreed, but I wanted to move cautiously. Next thing I knew, she'd brought in Marcus with a significant stake. When I questioned it, she said it was temporary, just to get us through a cash flow issue." "What cash flow issue?" Victoria's laugh was hollow. "Exactly. Our books were fine, but suddenly there were discrepancies, invoices I didn't recognize." "And you didn't confront her?" "I tried. She always had explanations, documentation. Made me feel like I was losing my mind." Victoria leaned forward. "Then last month, I found out she'd taken out a business loan using our company as collateral, without my signature." My breath caught. "That's fraud." Provably so." Victoria's eyes hardened. "I've been gathering evidence, but I need to be careful. If Rachel suspects anything before I'm ready, she'll destroy the evidence," I finished. "Or worse, clean out whatever's left and disappear." Victoria studied me. "Why do you care about this, Harper? After what she did with Alan?" I considered lying, crafting some noble explanation. Instead, I gave her the truth. Because she took everything from me: my relationship, my trust, my self-respect. My voice remained steady, even as my hands trembled. She made me doubt every instinct I had for months, made me think I was crazy for suspecting Alan was cheating, all while she was sleeping with him. Victoria reached across the table, her fingers briefly touching mine. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. Just help me stop her from doing this to anyone else." She withdrew her hand, considering. "What exactly are you proposing?" "An alliance. You have the business evidence. I have other information." I thought of the anonymous text, the timeline I'd built. Together, we might have enough to expose her. "And Alan?" The question caught me off guard. "What about him? Is he part of this too? The business fraud?" I hesitated. Despite everything, I hadn't considered Alan might be involved beyond the personal betrayal. "I don't know." Victoria pulled out her phone, scrolled briefly, then turned it toward me. "This might help you decide." It was a bank statement showing a transfer from Alan's personal account to Rachel's business 3 days before they left for Santorini. The amount made my stomach lurch: $50,000. That's... I struggled to process the implications. "More than a romantic gesture," Victoria finished grimly. "That's investment money." As I stared at the screen, a notification appeared. A text from an unknown number. "Rachel knows you're digging. Watch your back." I sat cross-legged on my childhood bed, surrounded by photo albums and yearbooks. My parents had kept my room exactly as I'd left it after college. A time capsule of the person I used to be. The person who trusted easily and loved without reservation. The warning text had sent me fleeing my apartment, paranoid about who might be watching. My parents were on a cruise, making their empty house the perfect hiding place while I regrouped. I flipped through a middle school yearbook, pausing at a class photo. There we were, 13-year-old Rachel and me, arms linked, gap-toothed smiles. Before boys and business partnerships, before betrayal became our love language. Find anything useful in memory lane? Sterling's voice startled me. He leaned against the doorframe, 2 mugs of tea in hand. Sterling had been my neighbor growing up, my first friend in this town. When I'd called him in a panic after leaving the cafe with Victoria, he'd immediately offered his help. Now he crossed the room and handed me a steaming mug, settling beside me on the bed. Just ghosts, I answered, closing the yearbook. Thanks for coming over. Like I had a choice. You sounded like you were having a breakdown. I'm fine. Said every person having a breakdown ever. He nudged my shoulder. Talk to me, Harper. I took a deep breath. I don't know who sent that warning text. It could be anyone. Rachel, Alan, this Marcus guy. Maybe even Victoria playing both sides. Or someone trying to help you. By telling me to watch my back. That's not helpful, that's threatening. Sterling picked up one of the photos. Rachel and me at her 25th birthday. Champagne glasses raised. You really think Rachel would threaten you? After everything you've been through together? After everything she's done, you mean? I snatched the photo back. She's been lying to me for over a year, Sterling. Sleeping with my boyfriend, embezzling from her business partner. Who knows what else she's capable of? He studied me, his expression unreadable. And you're sure about all this? The business fraud stuff? Victoria showed me proof. Victoria, who conveniently appeared right when you needed an ally against Rachel. I set down my mug with more force than necessary. Whose side are you on? Yours, always yours. Sterling ran a hand through his hair. But revenge makes people blind, Harper. I've watched you spiral for days, obsessing over spreadsheets and conspiracies. This isn't you. Maybe it should be. I stood up, pacing the small room. Maybe me is the problem. Too trusting, too forgiving, too fucking naive. That's not a problem. That's what makes you Harper. Well, Harper got her heart ripped out, and her life turned upside down, so excuse me if I'm not rushing to preserve that version of myself. Sterling was quiet for a long moment. What's your endgame here? What happens after you expose Rachel and Alan? The question caught me off guard. I'd been so focused on gathering evidence, on the mechanics of exposure, I hadn't thought much beyond it. Justice, I guess. They face consequences. They lose what they took from me. And then what? You just move on? I stopped pacing. I don't know, maybe. Because from where I'm sitting, you're letting them take even more from you. Your peace, your time, the best parts of who you are. His words hit harder than I wanted to admit. I sank back onto the bed, suddenly exhausted. I can't just do nothing, Sterling. I'm not saying do nothing. I'm saying be careful you don't become what you're fighting. My phone buzzed. Peyton calling. I answered on speaker. You need to check your email, she said without greeting. Now. I grabbed my laptop, Sterling leaning in to see as I opened my inbox. The most recent message was from an address I didn't recognize, with the subject line, What Rachel Doesn't Want You to Know. What is this? I asked Peyton. Open it and find out. I got the same email 10 minutes ago. With Sterling watching, I clicked. Inside was a single document. A police report from 3 years ago. A domestic disturbance call to Alan's previous address, before he moved in with me. The complainant's name was redacted, but the details were clear. Accusations of emotional abuse, controlling behavior, financial manipulation. Holy shit, I whispered. Keep reading, Peyton urged. The report noted that the complainant ultimately declined to press charges, but wanted the incident documented. The responding officer had written, Subject appeared fearful of repercussions. Mentioned partner's connections could make things difficult. This was when Alan was with his ex before me, I said slowly. Melissa. The one who went crazy after they broke up, Sterling asked, using air quotes. The one he said spread rumors about him? I nodded, feeling sick. He said she was unstable, that she made things up when he ended things. Sounds familiar, Peyton said through the phone. Harper, what if Rachel isn't the mastermind here? What if she's just another victim? But they're together, I protested. They're in love. Are they? Sterling took the laptop, scrolling through the report. Or is she in too deep with whatever scheme they're running? Maybe she can't get out. I thought of Rachel's face when I confronted her. Not just guilt, but fear. The way she'd touched that necklace like a talisman. The way she'd said, it was Alan's idea about the social media posts. The anonymous text, I said suddenly. What if they're from Rachel? Warning you because she can't warn herself, Sterling finished. My phone buzzed again. Another email, this time with a video attachment. The preview showed security camera footage of what looked like a hotel lobby. What is that? Peyton asked. I don't know. I hesitated, finger hovering over the play button. But I think someone's trying to show me the truth. Sterling's hand covered mine. Whatever's on that video, Harper, it changes things. Are you ready for that? I pressed play, watching as the grainy footage revealed Alan in a heated argument with Rachel in the corner of a hotel lobby. His finger jabbing at her chest. Her head bowed. His hand gripping her arm so tightly that even in the poor quality video, I could see her wince. The timestamp, 2 days before their Santorini photos appeared online. The night pressed against my bedroom window, a canvas of shadows as I lay awake, replaying the security footage in my mind. I'd watched it 17 times, analyzing every gesture, every flinch, the way Rachel's shoulders curved inward, the way Alan's face twisted with something uglier than anger. My phone lit up the darkness. Another anonymous text. There's more. Storage Unit 227, Westlake Facility. Code 0629. My birthday, June 29th. I glanced at the clock. 2:17 a.m. Too late to do anything, but too early to pretend I'd sleep. I threw back the covers and dressed quickly, moving on autopilot. 20 minutes later, I pulled into the storage facility's empty parking lot. The night guard barely glanced up from his magazine as I signed in with a fake name. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as I walked down the silent corridor, my footsteps echoing against metal doors. Unit 227 was at the end of the hall. I punched in the code, half expecting nothing to happen. The lock clicked open. Inside, a single cardboard box sat in the center of the otherwise empty unit. On top was an envelope with my name, written in familiar handwriting, Rachel's looping script. My hands trembled as I opened it. Harper. If you're reading this, I finally found the courage to send you to this place, or I'm dead. Either way, I'm sorry for everything. What you'll find in this box is evidence of what Alan has been doing. To me, to the business, to others before us. I've been collecting it for months, planning an escape that never seems to come. I know you hate me, you should. But please believe this wasn't what I wanted. It started as an affair, my greatest shame, but became something I couldn't control. Something I still can't escape. He knows I made this box. He's threatened what he'll do if I ever share it. Maybe by the time you read this, I'll have found safety. Maybe not. I don't expect forgiveness, just understanding. R. I set the letter aside, my heart pounding as I opened the box. Inside were folders, USB drives, and a burner phone. I grabbed the folder labeled Financial, flipping through bank statements showing systematic transfers from Rachel's business accounts to offshore holdings. Another folder contained medical records, Rachel's visits to the ER for accidents that coincided with business trips with Alan. The most damning evidence was on the USB drives, recordings of Alan coaching Rachel on what to tell Victoria, how to manipulate the books, when to introduce Marcus to the business. His voice cold and methodical, hers subdued and compliant. Jesus, Rachel, I whispered to the empty room. Why didn't you tell me? But I knew why. The same reason I'd ignored the red flags with Alan. The same reason I'd believed his version of every story. Shame, denial, fear. I packed everything back into the box and carried it to my car, my mind racing with implications. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. It was about abuse, fraud, and a woman trapped in a nightmare partly of her own making. You can't seriously be considering helping her. Peyton paced my living room the next morning, incredulous. After what she did to you? I spread the evidence across my coffee table. This isn't about helping Rachel. It's about stopping Alan. Ah, bullshit. You've been obsessed with taking Rachel down for weeks, and suddenly you find a sob story and flip completely? It's not a sob story, Peyton. Look at these photos. I pushed forward the medical records. Look at the bruises, the accidental falls. She glanced at them, her expression softening slightly. Fine, he's abusive. That's horrible. But it doesn't erase what she did to you. I know that. I ran my hands through my hair. But what if she's reaching out because she has no one else? What if those anonymous texts were her only safe way to communicate? Or what if this is another manipulation? What if Alan found out you were investigating, and they planted this to throw you off? The doubt in Peyton's voice mirrored my own internal struggle. I'd spent weeks building a case against Rachel, channeling my hurt into righteous anger. Now I was questioning everything. I need to talk to her, I said finally. Alone, away from him. That's exactly what they'd want if this is a trap. My phone rang. Victoria. I answered on speaker. Rachel's in the hospital, she said without preamble. She fell down the stairs at her apartment last night, broke her arm and has a concussion. My eyes met Peyton's, a silent exchange passing between us. Is she alone? I asked. No, Alan's with her. He's not letting anyone else in to see her. Victoria's voice dropped. Harper, something's wrong. The nurse pulled me aside and said Rachel was asking for you before they sedated her. Said it was urgent. I'll be there in 20 minutes. I hung up, already reaching for my keys. Harper, wait. Peyton grabbed my arm. This is exactly how horror movies start. The vulnerable woman goes alone to confront the potential psychopath. What choice do I have? If Rachel's trying to escape him, this might be her only chance to communicate safely. Hospital staff everywhere, security cameras. At least let me come with you. No. I shook my head. If Alan sees you, he'll know something's up. You're too connected to me. But there is something you can do. I handed her the box from the storage unit. Make copies of everything. If I'm not back in 3 hours, take it all to the police. Peyton took the box, her expression grim. This is a bad idea. Probably. I grabbed my purse. But I keep thinking about something Sterling said, about not becoming what I'm fighting. I spent weeks plotting revenge against someone who might be a victim herself. I can't just walk away from that. And if it's a trap? I pulled out the burner phone from Rachel's box. Then I'll have proof and witnesses. As I headed for the door, my regular phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Don't come to the hospital, he knows. I stood in the hospital parking lot, staring at the warning text. My finger hovered over the call button for Sterling's number, but I hesitated. What would I even say? That I was about to walk into a trap? That I needed saving from my own reckless decisions? Before I could decide, a familiar voice called my name. I turned to see Francesca, my boss, climbing out of her Mercedes 2 spaces over. Harper, what are you doing here? She adjusted her designer blazer, looking as polished at 10 a.m. on a Saturday as she did during weekday board meetings. I'm visiting a friend. The word felt wrong in my mouth. What about you? Board meeting for the hospital foundation. She studied my face. Are you all right? You look like you've seen a ghost. I must have looked worse than I thought, because Francesca, who maintained professional boundaries like fortress walls, actually touched my arm. It's complicated, I managed. Most important things are... She glanced at her watch. I have 15 minutes before my meeting. Coffee in the cafeteria? I nodded, grateful for the reprieve from my decision. As we walked, I felt my phone vibrate again in my pocket, but didn't check it. The cafeteria was half empty, the morning rush having passed. We claimed a corner table, steam rising from our mediocre coffees. "So," Francesca said, "does this complicated situation explain why you've been distracted at work lately?" I winced. I'd hoped my personal crisis wasn't affecting my performance. "I'm sorry, I'll do better." "That wasn't a reprimand, Harper. It was concern." She stirred her coffee methodically. "When I was 32, I discovered my husband was embezzling from our joint accounts to fund his gambling addiction. By the time I confronted him, he'd drained our savings and taken out loans in my name." The confession startled me. In 3 years working for Francesca, she'd never shared anything personal. "I'm sorry," I said. "I had no idea. No one did. I was too ashamed to tell anyone." She met my eyes. "Pride can be dangerous that way. It keeps us isolated when we most need support." Something in her steady gaze made me wonder if she knew more than she was letting on. "My friend upstairs," I said carefully. "She's in trouble, with a man who's hurting her. But she also hurt me, badly, and I'm struggling to separate those things." Francesca nodded. "And you're here to—" "What? Save her? Confront her?" "I don't know anymore." I stared into my coffee. "I thought I was coming to help, but now I'm not sure if I'm walking into a trap." "A trap?" I pulled out my phone, showing her the warning text. Francesca read it, her expression hardening. "This man, he's here now? With your friend?" I nodded. "And does he know you're coming?" "Maybe, probably." I ran a hand through my hair. "I should leave, right? That would be the smart thing." "Smart, yes." Francesca's voice was measured. "But sometimes smart isn't right. Sometimes the hardest path is the necessary one." My phone buzzed again. Another text from the unknown number. He stepped out to take a call. "Third floor, room 317. Hurry!" I showed Francesca, who stood immediately. "I'm coming with you. You have your meeting," which suddenly seems far less important. She gathered her purse. "I don't know what's happening, Harper, but no one should face situations like this alone. I learned that the hard way." We took the elevator to the third floor, my heart hammering against my ribs. The corridor stretched before us, fluorescent lights casting everything in a sickly glow. "Wait," Francesca said as we approached room 317. "Let me go first. If this man returns, I'll intercept him. Hospital board has its privileges." I nodded gratefully, watching her stride confidently toward the nurse's station while I slipped into Rachel's room. The steady beep of monitors filled the silence. Rachel lay still, her face pale against the white pillow, her arm in a cast. Bruises bloomed along her jawline, disappearing beneath the hospital gown. "Rachel?" I whispered, approaching cautiously. Her eyes fluttered open, widening when she saw me. "You came." Her voice was hoarse. "Even after everything. I got your messages, and I found the storage unit." Tears welled in her eyes. "I'm so sorry, Harper. For all of it. Alan, he wasn't who either of us thought. I know that now." I moved closer, taking her uninjured hand. "Why didn't you tell me what was happening?" "Shame. Fear." She squeezed my fingers weakly. "And then it was too late. He had too much control. Over the business, over me. He threatened to hurt you if I warned you." "But you did warn me. The texts, the evidence. Only after I realized what he's planning next." Rachel tried to sit up, wincing. "He's moving all the remaining business assets offshore next week. Victoria's signature has been forged on the documents. Once that happens, everything's gone. The business, our reputations, any chance of legal recourse." "We can stop him. I have the evidence from your storage unit." "It's not enough." Rachel's eyes darted to the door. "He has someone at the bank helping him. And the police. His brother-in-law is a detective. That's why I never reported him." "Then we'll find another way." I pulled out my phone. "Peyton has copies of everything. We can—" The door swung open. I expected Francesca, but instead, Victoria stood there, her expression unreadable. "Victoria," I started. "Thank God you're—" "Step away from her, Harper." Victoria's voice was ice. "You've been played." She moved into the room, revealing Alan right behind her, his hand resting possessively on her lower back. "Hello, Harper," he said, smiling that charming smile that once made my heart race. "We've been expecting you." Rachel's fingers tightened around mine in what felt like warning or apology. I couldn't tell which. "Victoria?" I managed, confusion washing over me. "You and Alan? Always," she replied coolly. "Rachel was just a means to an end, a rather gullible one at that." Alan stepped forward, closing the door behind him. "We should talk, Harper, about all those copies you've been making of things that don't belong to you." The hospital room shrank around us, air thinning with each breath. Rachel's fingers remained intertwined with mine, her grip surprisingly strong for someone who looked so broken. "Victoria and Alan," I said, the pieces clicking into place. "It was you two all along." Victoria smiled, cold and precise. "Not all along. Alan and Rachel were genuinely together at first, until he realized she was a liability rather than an asset. And then you stepped in." I kept my voice steady despite the hammering in my chest. "She recognized potential when she saw it," Alan said, moving closer. "Unlike Rachel, who couldn't follow simple instructions. Unlike you, who never saw what was right in front of you." I thought of the storage unit, the evidence, the carefully crafted narrative that had led me here. The anonymous texts, the security footage. "That was you, wasn't it?" Victoria shrugged elegantly. "We needed you focused on saving Rachel rather than exposing our operation. Your predictable hero complex made it easy. You manipulated me." The realization burned. "Again. Don't take it personally." Alan's smile didn't reach his eyes. "It's just business." "Fraud is business now?" "It's always been business," Victoria replied. "Rachel was too emotional, too attached to her little design dreams to see the bigger picture. We needed her name, her connections, her trusting nature. Just like we needed your silence." Alan stepped closer, his cologne, once so familiar, now turning my stomach. "Speaking of silence, let's discuss those copies you mentioned to Rachel. Where are they?" I glanced at the door, wondering if Francesca was nearby, or if that had been part of the setup too. "Harper!" Alan's voice hardened. "The copies!" "With people you can't reach," I bluffed. "If I don't check in within the hour, everything goes to the FBI." Victoria laughed. "The FBI? For a small-time investment scheme? Don't be dramatic." But Alan's expression had shifted, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his face. "Who has them?" "Does it matter? It's over, Alan. Whatever you and Victoria planned, it's finished. Nothing's finished." He grabbed my arm, fingers digging into flesh. "You're going to call whoever has those files and tell them it was all a misunderstanding. You're going to fix this." Rachel's monitor beeped faster as she tried to sit up. "Let her go, Alan." "Shut up," he snapped. "This is your fault. If you just played your part." The door opened and Francesca stepped in. Her eyes took in the scene in one swift assessment. "Is there a problem here?" Her voice carried the quiet authority that had always commanded respect in boardrooms. Alan released my arm, his demeanor shifting instantly to charm. "No problem. Just a family disagreement. My fiancé's friend is upset." "Fiancé?" I interrupted, looking at Victoria. She held up her left hand, displaying a diamond ring. The emerald pendant that had once been mine now hung around her neck. "Recent development." Francesca moved further into the room. "I believe the patient needs rest. Perhaps you could continue this discussion elsewhere." "We're not finished," Alan said, the threat clear beneath his polite tone. "Actually," came a new voice from the doorway, "you are." Sterling stood there, phone in hand, recording. Behind him was a hospital security guard and a woman in a suit I didn't recognize. "Ms. Brown, Mr. Norton," the suited woman said, stepping forward. "I'm Special Agent Daniels with the FBI. We'd like to ask you some questions about Marcus Devereaux and several suspicious financial transactions." Victoria's composure cracked. "This is absurd. You can't just—" "We can and we are." Agent Daniels nodded to the security guard, who moved toward Alan. We have a warrant for financial records related to Rachel Kelly Designs and several offshore accounts. Alan's face contorted with rage. He lunged toward me, but Sterling was faster, stepping between us. Don't! Sterling warned, still recording. Alan froze, calculation replacing anger. This is a misunderstanding. Victoria and I were actually working to expose Marcus's scheme. Ask Rachel. She's the one who brought him in. All eyes turned to Rachel, who met Alan's gaze without flinching. That's not true, she said, her voice stronger than I expected. I have recordings, conversations where Alan instructed me to bring in Marcus, to move money, to forge Victoria's signature. She's delusional, Victoria snapped. Look at her. She's on pain medication. I pulled out the burner phone from Rachel's storage unit. The recordings are here, and in the copies I made. The ones Peyton took to the FBI field office an hour ago. Agent Daniels smiled slightly. Which is why we're here, Ms. Olson. Your cousin was quite persuasive. Alan's face drained of color. Victoria, don't say another word. They're bluffing. But Victoria was already backing away from him, her survival instincts kicking in. I want immunity, she said to Agent Daniels. I can tell you everything, about Alan, about Marcus, about all of it. Victoria! Alan moved toward her, but the security guard blocked his path. You said we were untouchable, she hissed. You promised no one would find out. No one would have if you hadn't involved Harper, Alan shouted, mask finally slipping completely. If you'd just let me handle her like I wanted to. The room fell silent at his outburst. Agent Daniels raised an eyebrow. And how exactly did you plan to handle Ms. Olson? Alan's eyes darted around the room, looking for escape. Finding none, he lunged for the door, shoving past Sterling. The security guard moved quickly, but Alan was already in the hallway. I ran after him without thinking, adrenaline propelling me forward. Alan, stop! I called. He glanced back, his face twisted with fury, and ran directly into Peyton, who stepped out of the elevator with perfect timing. She stuck out her foot, sending him sprawling across the polished floor. As security surrounded him, I caught Rachel's gaze through the doorway. For the first time in months, I saw something real in her eyes. Not manipulation or fear, but genuine remorse, and perhaps a glimmer of the friendship we'd once shared. The wind outside the hospital windows howled, a storm breaking at last. The courtroom emptied slowly, conversations hushed against the polished wood and solemn atmosphere. I remained seated, watching Alan and Victoria being led away in handcuffs, not for sentencing, but for violating bail conditions after attempting to contact Rachel. You okay? Sterling asked, his shoulder warm against mine. I think so, I said, surprised to find it mostly true. The preliminary hearing had gone exactly as Agent Daniels predicted. The evidence was overwhelming. Financial records, Rachel's recordings, testimony from Marcus Devereaux, who'd cut a deal, and my own documentation. The judge had denied bail modification and set a trial date for next month. Want to get some air? Sterling stood, offering his hand. Outside, autumn painted the courthouse steps in gold and crimson. We sat beneath a maple tree, watching leaves spiral down in the gentle breeze. I keep thinking about Victoria's face when they read the charges, I said. She looked shocked, like she genuinely didn't believe consequences would apply to her. Some people go their whole lives thinking that. Sterling picked up a leaf, tracing its veins. Until someone like you comes along. I shook my head. I didn't do this alone. No, but you kept going when most people would have walked away. When it got complicated, when Rachel turned out to be both villain and victim, when the easy revenge narrative fell apart, you still pursued the truth. His words settled over me, a recognition I hadn't allowed myself. For weeks, I'd focused on what others had done, the betrayals, the manipulations, the rescue. I'd minimized my own role in unraveling the scheme. My phone buzzed with a text from Peyton. Rachel's asking for you. You going? I showed Sterling, who raised an eyebrow. Are you? I don't know. I stared at the message. Part of me still can't separate the Rachel who betrayed me from the Rachel who was manipulated by Alan. Maybe you don't have to separate them. Maybe they're both real. I considered this as we walked to my car. The hospital was only 15 minutes away. I could go, hear whatever Rachel wanted to say, or I could drive home, close this chapter, move forward without looking back. I'll drop you at your place, I told Sterling, making my decision. Rachel's hospital room was different now, filled with sunlight and flowers, the monitoring equipment gone. She sat in a chair by the window, her cast covered in signatures, her bruises faded to yellow shadows. She looked up when I entered, surprise and hope crossing her face. You came. I almost didn't. I remained standing, keeping distance between us. I wouldn't blame you if you hadn't. She gestured to the chair opposite hers. Please? I sat, noticing the sketchbook open on her lap. Design drawings, familiar in style, but new in concept. I'm restarting, she said, following my gaze. From scratch. New business, new name. No investors, no partners. Just me and my designs. That's good. I meant it, despite the complicated emotions swirling beneath. I have something for you. Rachel reached for an envelope on the side table, wincing slightly at the movement. The deed to the studio. I've signed it over to you. I stared at the envelope, not taking it. Why would you do that? Because it was always meant to be ours. Before Alan, before all of this, we talked about opening a place together. You with your marketing expertise, me with my designs. Her voice softened. I know we can't go back to that, but the space is paid for, and it's yours if you want it. The gesture knocked me off balance. Rachel, you don't have to decide now, or ever. She set the envelope on the table between us. It's just, I've been thinking about what I can actually fix. Not the friendship. I know that's broken beyond repair. But maybe I can give you back something tangible. I studied her face, searching for manipulation and finding only exhaustion and regret. Did you ever really care? About me? About our friendship? Or was I just convenient? You were the most real thing in my life. Her eyes filled with tears. That's what made it so easy for Alan to use you against me. He knew hurting you was the one thing I couldn't bear, even after I betrayed you. But you did it anyway. Yes. She didn't try to justify or explain. I did. The simple admission hit harder than any elaborate excuse could have. In it, I heard the Rachel I'd once known, direct, honest, taking responsibility. I don't forgive you, I said quietly. I don't know if I ever will. I understand. But I don't hate you anymore either. The realization came as I spoke it. And I don't need anything from you. Not explanations, not property, not amends. I stood, leaving the envelope untouched. I hope you rebuild, Rachel. I hope you find your way back to yourself. What about you? She asked. What will you do now? I thought about Francesca's offer to lead our firm's new creative division, about Sterling's patient presence, about the journal I'd started keeping, turning pain into words, confusion into clarity. I'm going to stop looking backward, I said. Stop defining myself by what was done to me or taken from me. As I turned to leave, Rachel called after me. Harper, how did you know? That day in the cafe, when you first saw the photos, what made you keep digging instead of just walking away? I paused at the door, considering. I recognized something in your eyes in those pictures. Something I'd seen in my own reflection too many times. The look of someone performing happiness while drowning inside. Outside, the autumn air filled my lungs, crisp and clean. I didn't look back at the hospital as I walked to my car. Whatever came next, the trial, the rebuilding, the inevitable questions from well-meaning friends, I would face it standing firmly in my own truth. The betrayal had broken me open, but the pieces were reforming into something stronger, clearer, more discerning. Not because of what they had done to me, but because of what I had done in response. I had trusted myself when every external voice told me not to. I had pursued truth when lies would have been easier. I had finally learned to recognize the difference between the story someone tells about themselves and the truth they reveal through their actions. And in that difference lies everything.